outside today. So Lincoln and I went outside and picked violet tops to make violet jelly. You can make violet jelly just with the common violets that are in your yard this time of year. You just need 2 cups of the violet tops, not the stems, just the tops. Once you pick those, you just wash those really well in a bowl of cool water. I usually wash them 2 or 3 times. And then you take the violets and you put them in a quart jar. And then I take boiling water and I pour that over those violets. And you just need to let that set in the refrigerator overnight or 24 hours. So we will come back tomorrow and check on this, and then we'll finish making violet jelly. And we're going to do the second part of violet jelly. We had taken those violet tops and put them in the refrigerator and let them chill for 24 hours. So you can see how nice and dark that is, the coloring of it. And now we're going to strain the violets out. I use a mesh colander, and then on top of the mesh colander I set a paper towel. And we're just going to pour in the liquid and just catch all the violets and just let all of that liquid run down. You don't have to get all the violets out of the jar because you're just going to discard those. So I press them just a little bit to get all of the violet liquid out of there. And then I'll compost that. And then you add the juice of 1 lemon. So I've already got half of the lemon in there. And however you want to juice it, if you have a manual juicer, whatever you want to do to get the juice of 1 lemon. This one I like because it catches all of the seeds, and then I can just put those in my compost. So here's a really cool thing that happens when you add this lemon juice, and I'm going to hold this up so you can see this. There's a really cool chemical reaction that takes place, and it will turn this violet water a really pretty lavender color. I love to watch that happen every time. Then you just stir that around. So, and then you will pour that in a pan that I'll then put on the stove, and you will add to that violet water and lemon juice 4 cups of sugar. So you add your sugar in, and then I'll stir that around. I will get that going on the stove, and then once that gets boiling, I will show you how to can this violet jelly. The last part of canning violet jelly. So here's our violet liquid with the sugar boiling. Now that that's boiling, I'm just going to add 1 packet of pectin. There's lots of varieties you can use. I'm using Certo brand pectin. And then you stir that and let that boil for 1 minute. And then one of the things you really need to remember when you're canning is to make sure everything is well sterilized. So my jars are in here boiling. My ladle is in here also with the boiling water. I've sterilized the funnel. The lids here are sterilized and they're staying warm. There was boiling water that was poured over them. For safe canning practices, you just need to have a very clean, sterile working environment, as sterile as you can get in a home kitchen. So I just make sure that everything stays nice, and then I take the wand, and you'll see what I use to pull the jars out with, and everything has just been cleaned really well. I grew up canning. We canned a lot growing up, and so I'm thankful for that heritage and my family that taught us how to do that. My husband actually also grew up canning, and it really helps your food budget to go a lot further. When you can home can the produce at the peak of its season when it's cheaper, and then you can use that for months to come in your family pantry. So now that that's been boiling for 1 minute, we'll take these out. lost my grip. Make sure you grip that. And then I pour in that boiling water. There's my funnel. We'll put that in there. I'm going to turn this down just a little. And for the violet jelly, I use these really small jars. They're half the size of a jelly jar. And you fill that up. And then this is a pretty important step. I take a damp paper towel. I just need to fill that just a little more. And you take that damp paper towel and you wipe the top of that jar. When you do that, it does two things. One, it checks for cracks in the jar, because if you have cracks, it's not going to seal. And two, it wipes off any sugar residue from the jar. Then you take the lid, this is a nice little magnetic wand, and you just set that lid on there. And then you put the ring on there. And then I set that aside and go on to the next jar. So you're going to do that with all of these jars. You do that same process. And then once you have all of these filled, you'll put them back in this. This is called a water bath canner. When you're doing things with this much sugar in them that have a higher acid content, or that have a higher acid content, you don't need to do things in a pressure cooker. If you are canning things with a lower acid content, then you need to use that pressure cooker or that autoclave to make sure you're using those safe canning practices, because you can get really sick from home canning if you don't follow these guidelines. This, as you saw from earlier, has a lot of sugar in it. So jellies are one of the things that you do not have to pressure cook. You can just do the water bath canning with. So I'm not going to show you all of these, but you just go through this process with all of these. And then once I have all of these filled, I'm just going to put them right back into this water bath canner. And again, when you do that, you'll take your jars and just put them in there. You want to make sure when you are canning, and you'll see this maybe a little bit, you just want to make sure that there's water over the tops of your cans. As I keep on filling these, that will occur because you put enough water in there that it gets displaced enough with the content inside the jars. They're taking up more space in that water than the empty jars are. And so as you fill that up, you want to make sure that there's about this much water over the top of your lids and rings. And then once I have all of those in there, you'll set the timer for 5 minutes and water bath can them for 5 minutes, and then you'll pull them out. So that's kind of canning 101 with the violet jelly. Once you pull them out, again, you want to put them in a draft-free place. This is not the time to open all the windows and have a breeze going, because you don't want the temperature to change that drastically on the glass. And so I take them out and set them over on the counter and just let them cool. You'll hear that sound as it's sealing, and that's violet jelly. Have a great day.